Now let me introduce you to Peter and Bundle Lawson, who I have the pleasure of sharing a fence line with. We never do fence line comparison photos though, because that just wouldn't be very good. Between them, they run their two family farms, so they're caring for a lot of family history on Gundillawah in the Mundarlo Valley and Trewalla at Book. They've been using the principles of holistic management since 2008 to move towards their goal of high quality, healthy food and fibre in a sustainable, profitable manner while regenerating and improving their resource base. And they do that with their growing family, and they have a lot of fun while they're at it. So, Peter, thank you.
Thanks, Beck. Our journey really started in 1992 or 93 when my father attended a grazing for profit school with Stan Parsons and Terry McCosker. The reason Dad did the course was because when he and Mum bought our 2,800 acre property Trewalla in 1975, over 1/3 of the property was a single 1,000 acre paddock of weather country. It had been run like it was weather country for about 50 odd years at a guess, so it looked like weather country. Their predecessor had told them that the paddock used to run 1,200 wethers set stocked, but by the time Mum and Dad took over, it could only support 1,000 head. Within a few years, it had been split into two paddocks, but was down to running about 800, plus a family of about 12 kangaroos, and Mum and Dad could see where things were heading. The landscape function of this paddock was what you might call a renovator's delight. It was bare, hard, with sparse populations of low succession plants, mostly wiregrass and lichen, that were all sitting up on pedestals of capped soil. The erosion gullies were deep, active and fast. With the problems and issues so evident, Mum and Dad were naturally keen to explore a few options as to how they might reverse the trend. So in 92 or 3, Dad took himself off to do the GFP school, having seen it advertised at a local field day. When he came back and talked us through what he had learnt so far, it just immediately sat well with me. It seemed to make sense despite some real paradigm shifts in thinking being required. He set up a trial cell of about 200 acres with a 6-trough watering system, 15 paddocks, with gravity-fed water from a dam. Neighbours thought he had lost it completely. In 1995, when I'd finished Ag College, I did the holistic management course, just as a point of reference really, with Mark Gardner and Brian Marshall. And we started gradually changing a few more things at home. At the same time, we started working through our family succession. In 1998, I took over the management of Trewalla and, like a bull at a gate, started fencing madly. I made some really bad mistakes and seemed to make minimal to moderate positive progress in the landscape. In my helter-skelter approach, I boxed everything, didn't do enough planning, certainly didn't do enough monitoring, and failed to acknowledge that in many cases, the water points were not up to coping with the larger mob sizes. But the basic principles of holistic management still sat very well with me, despite the fact that to many local farmers, I had well and truly proven, beyond doubt, that holistic management, cell grazing, did not work. And I felt it. This bred a lot of self-doubt, and making effective decisions became a more difficult task. Looking back now, I'm sure that the decisions were not all wrong, but the execution was where I think I let myself down. Bundle and I got married, thank goodness, in 2004 and continued to blunder our way through the next few years of the millennial drought. And like a lot of others, we were wondering how we were going to get out of this. At the time, we were thinking we were managing holistically, but in reality, we were still hedging our bets with a mix of conventional, for want of a better word, and holistic practices, but decided that we weren't really doing either very well. The bank was seemingly in touch with us way too often, and we were going nowhere from a business or ecological point of view, and we weren't really enjoying ourselves. So after some soul-searching conversations about whether we sell up and start again, or seriously change what we were doing, we opted for the latter. The regenerative ag, which I don't even think was a word or a phrase then, still sat very well with both of us. So we decided to redo the HM course together. And we did that in 2008 with Bruce and Susie. And Bundle had previously done the course earlier as well. Having redone the course, we came home We were still in drought, still running a lot of temporary fence tape, but immediately started enjoying what we were doing, and more importantly, why we were doing it. So we ran even more tape. We created our joint goals, which had barely changed when we had both done our respective HM courses some years ago. And we were back farming for a purpose and with intent. We were back in charge of our decision making and able to listen to advice but make up our own minds whether we implemented it or not, rather than getting advice and feeling we should take it just because. In about 2009, I had the opportunity to sit next to Alan Savoury at a conference dinner, and I asked him if there was one thing about holistic management that was most important. I think I was probably hoping he would say the most important thing was something to do with grazing management, recovery periods, animal density, or how many paddocks I needed, the things that interested me. And in other words, I think I was looking for a silver bullet. Alan's reply was thoughtful, as you can imagine. He said the most important thing is to be clear with your goals, because then, even by default, you will tend that way. We couldn't agree more, and know that the more we revisit our goals, and the clearer they are, the easier the decision-making is. I'm also sure that it was these goals, tucked away deeply in our conscious from our earlier courses, that kept dragging us back to where we are now. From then on, every decision we made was tested to make sure it would take us towards what we were trying to achieve. Slowly but surely, we are getting there. We are also very conscious of trying, albeit not always successfully, to find the root cause of a problem and address that rather than the symptoms. In the past decade, we've been through family succession with Bundle's family and have taken over her family property, Gundillawah, which has been in the family for over 165 years. We've been very fortunate to have had two very good experiences with succession, for which we are very grateful. That is not to say that it wasn't at times difficult, frustrating or emotional for everyone involved, but in both instances we were able to address issues as they arose and to discuss them until we had an outcome that people were willing to accept. We're very appreciative of the opportunities we've had, but it does put a bit of pressure on us to do the same thing when it's our turn with the next generation. The opportunity for us to take on Gundillawah was supported by the holistic management's clear decision-making process. We were able to take each step as it came and tested it against our goals. And when we needed more information to make a decision to progress the discussions, then we sought it, knowing that getting it right now would ultimately help lead us towards what we had wanted to achieve in the future. Our approach to managing holistically has been far more planned and measured at Gundillawah. We started by spending a bit of time working out our livestock water requirements and then implemented a reticulated watering system to match. This took several years to construct and get right and required some refencing along the way, but it has enabled us to now start to subdivide more paddocks and keep improving our grazing. The other very important factor in our journey has been the support groups we've been involved with. Finding a group of like-minded people to have very open discussions with has been invaluable to us. It has also helped us stay focused on what we are trying to achieve and reduce the noise of what everyone else thinks you should be doing. And what of that original 1,000-acre paddock at Trewalla that was down to carrying only 800 wethers? Well, it's still very light country, still very eroded, but it is now 19 paddocks with a great coverage of increasingly diverse grasses and plant species. While it still has a long way to go, including more subdivisions, generally it's more than doubled the carrying capacity, as well as 200 to 300 kangaroos, although the latter were not by design. Last spring and summer, that area provided the best wildflower display we've seen in the 46 years we've been there, and I have no doubt that a large part of this occurrence was because of how we were managing it, not despite it. We love watching the plant succession process do its thing and still get a great feeling every time we see a grass or a forb that we haven't seen or noticed before, even if we don't know what it is, purely because we know we have helped create an environment that has allowed it to grow.